Passaic River is the largest waterway in all of North Jersey. If you were to go on a trip all the way along the river, it's 90 miles long, but if you were to travel from one end to the other in a straight line, it would only be 30 miles in distance. The Passaic River runs through all kinds of places such as cities, urban areas, the suburbs, old colonial towns, and even the countryside. Small towns like Bernardsville and Basking Ridge run alongside the north end of the river, and as we move downstream, we run into towns like Little Falls and Patterson. Most people will call Patterson the midway point of the Passaic River since this is where the Patterson Great Falls are located. Patterson Great Falls is a national waterfall that was once looked at as a beautiful waterfall and was a great sight for all to see. Factories like the one you see pictured here started being built around the Patterson Great Falls in the late 18th century. They turned out to wear down the rock that formed the waterfall and eventually started creating contamination that became the source of what many people refer to as the first contributing source to the degradation of the Passaic River. South of the Patterson Great Falls is where the conditions of the river really start to change, and along with the changes throughout the river, the landscape of North Jersey begins to change as well. Towns south of Great Falls don't look anything like the old quiet towns of Bernardsville and Basking Ridge. Towns south of the Great Falls include Clinton, Harrison, and Kearney that eventually lead into the city of Newark. As the Passaic River runs south, the water quality begins to get worse and worse. Throughout history, the south end of the Passaic River has been victim to many dump sites that consistently dump toxic waste into the bottom of the river. The main contributor to this toxic dumping was the Diamond Alkali Company, and they were infamous for creating Agent Orange, a harmful herbicide that was used as a war weapon by the United States throughout the Vietnam War. Diamond Alkali became such an important company during the Vietnam War that it took over the southernmost 17 miles of the Passaic River. What the Diamond Alkali Company didn't realize was that the sludge created by the Agent Orange herbicide turned out to be dioxin, one of the deadliest chemicals in the world. Along with the dioxin that was being pumped into the Passaic River, other contaminants that were being dumped were mercury, PCBs, and scraps of metal. All of the dumping into the Passaic River started to pile up over the years and became a real problem when the soil on the bottom of the river turned into a big pile of slop that seemed impossible to clean up. The 17 miles of contaminated soil and water that we know as the south end of the Passaic River runs right through Newark, New Jersey. Since the 1960s, when Agent Orange and the Diamond Alkali Company were at their peaks, the Passaic River was suffering, and still is to this day. Citizens of Newark and the wildlife within the Passaic River have also suffered. Activities like fishing have become frowned upon if being done in the south end of the Passaic River due to its outrageous levels of contamination. It seems amazing to think that the Passaic River hasn't been cleaned up completely since the 1960s, but there are many reasons as to why the full cleanup hasn't happened yet. One of the main reasons for the incomplete cleanup is due to the fact that there is just simply too much contamination. Organizations like the Environmental Protection Agency tend to decap the hazardous sediment, but for as much as they can cover, it seems like they aren't even making a dent. The citizens of Newark have also made efforts to clean up the river, since a clean Passaic River would improve their lives tremendously. The Ironbound district of Newark is most affected by the south end of the Passaic River, and the citizens of the Ironbound take great pride in their community, and they don't want the Passaic River to be a direct reflection of who they are. One of the main reasons the citizens of the Ironbound can't make any real changes is due to the fact that they are low-income minority citizens that don't have a voice to express themselves on a level that would earn them some credibility. The Passaic River is a staple in North Jersey, but its horrible reputation negatively affects groups that don't deserve to be associated with the negative connotation that's used when talking about the river. Cleanup efforts still go on to this day, yet nothing has been done to completely wipe the contamination from the river. The question, will they ever completely clean up the Passaic River, is still up in the air, and the fact that there is not an answer should leave more concern than there should leave confidence. There are people that think the south end of the river will be fully restored at some point in the future, and there are other people that don't see an end in sight. There are people still using their voice to advocate for the cleanup, but in some ways it feels like this fight is always a losing battle. Hopefully we see the south end of the Passaic River return to the way that the north end of the river flows, but until then all we can do is fight for the people and wildlife that are directly affected by the environmental injustice that is the Passaic River.